Congress is back to work this week, which means maybe the House of Representatives will actually and finally pass the $1,400 stimulus check bill. The bill is then expected to go directly to the Senate. The Senate, however, is not expected to vote on this bill any earlier than the beginning of March, and quite frankly, we expected them to take it through the middle of March to actually get this bill done. Hey guys, Georgie from GTech Finance. So there were rumors that the Senate will actually vote earlier. This is based on the belief that just maybe the Senate will be able to definitely skip committee hearings and just slam dunk the bill. While that's possible, I think there's less than a 15% chance of that happening. Of course, in the meantime, we have Republicans blaming Democrats for spending too much money, and Democrats saying we're barely spending enough money. And of course, everybody's looking at Senator Joe Manchin, the one who could ruin the entire stimulus package for everyone. Though Joe Manchin has stepped back and sort of walked back his antagonism of the stimulus checks bill. And so the odds are he's just going to roll over and vote for it. I think it would be pretty unpopular for Joe Manchin in his next election to vote against Democrats in this one. We'll see. In the meantime, everyone is also looking at the Senate parliamentarian to see if the $15 per hour minimum wage will go through. If the $15 minimum wage actually is considered to be a fair budget measure by the parliamentarian, then Joe Manchin will most probably vote for the $15 minimum wage. That does leave Senator Kristen in a potential no vote, but we'll see if she ends up being convinced to vote for the bill or not. Anyway, now in the meantime, we're also going to see the payments of $200 per month, and most of all, the student loans of Joe Biden. So Joe Biden said he was vastly opposed to the $15,000 forgiveness. However, $10,000 is a sort of forgiveness of student loan debt is actually considered by him, but it's nowhere to be seen in this bill. It's not clear at all. They didn't even speak about it for a single line. Now, there's also no tax credit for EVs, although there are certain earmarked infrastructure funds. And there's also this question that passed a lot. If someone passed away, will he get a stimulus check? So first of all, if it happened to you, really sorry for your loss. And the answer is possibly. It depends how quickly the IRS and the Treasury Department update their logs to see if she's dead or still considered alive. So that technically that money could get clawed back by the government. So just be aware of that. Technically, you aren't supposed to keep that money for the targeted EIDL. If you started a business in 2019, you can still apply. If you started towards the November-December period of 2019, how you are going to compare numbers, so to speak, to 2020. So the rule for targeted EIDLs is that you can actually compare January and February 2020 income to parts of later 2020. You just have to compare 8 weeks periods to compare your income. In that case, it would work. Now, do dependents get stimulus checks? The answer to this is no. Parents get the stimulus checks. So yes, all dependents who are in sort of the same filing, the same tax filing of people who are eligible for the stimulus checks. Those dependents will get checks to $1,400, but those checks don't go to those dependents. They goes to the parents who filed. So technically, mom and dad get the checks for all dependents, children, and then if there are adult dependents, well, then the main filers, they get the checks. So the person who files as an independent filer, whether it is single head or household or married filing jointly, and they are filing and they're not getting claimed by anybody else as a dependent, they get all the checks. And if they have dependents, then they will get $1,400 for each dependent, no matter what age is for. That dependent now, this is a little tricky for college students. So if you're a college student, do you get a check? Well, it depends. If you file a loan and you are not claimed as a dependent, the answer is yes, you get a $1,400 check. As long as you fall within the income criteria. If you're making more than $75,000 as a single college student, first of all, hats off, you're great, but your check will start getting reduced. If you reach $100,000 a year, it's going to be zero. So you might be a dependent, and if your parents claim to get a stimulus check, and he might not either, but you're still claimed as a dependent by somebody else, you don't get a check, and then it's a little blurry. So if your parents are eligible for a check, they might get an extra $1,400 for this student, college student, which is a dependent. And so this is what I saw for this question. Now, do the airlines get any help? Yes, there's an extension of the airline payroll support program where airlines will receive up to $14 billion in contractors will receive up to $1 billion as long as they agree to certain restrictions like no stock buybacks or furloughs. Or furthermore, if you want to switch to an independent filer, let's say you were a dependent filer in 2020 or 2019 and you want to switch to file as an independent in 2020, should you file sooner rather than later? The answer is probably yes, because the sooner you file your taxes, the sooner your taxes are likely to be accepted. And if your taxes get accepted before you end up getting checked to see if you're eligible for a stimulus check, then you'll get a stimulus check. Otherwise, you might have to wait until next year when you go file your tax return for 2021. If you made money in 2020, but not in 2019, can you get a check? Well, as long as you made less than the income thresholds, the answer is yeah, totally sure. If you made money in 2020, as long as you're under that 75K single, 150 married filing jointly, or the other threshold, sure. Where people that are locked up in jail can get checks, then technically, yes, actually. Do people who are locked up get a check? Technically, there's nothing in this new bill that says people in prison or jail do not get a stimulus check. So believe the answer to that in this case is yes. Would you get a $1,400 check? How do I know? If there's still PPP money, well, we all know right now that there is, but we don't know how much is left. Mortgage forbearance for those with the loans, you've got a 3-month extension, up to 15 months of forbearance. For the other programs, I have not heard of additional extensions yet, though they might come. We'll have to stay tuned for that. When will the stimulus check come? Probably between the end of March and mid-April. That's if the bill passes the Senate, because we just talked about Joe Manchin and Kristen being really stubborn senators that don't accept it. I think that's all for today. This is the new daily update on the stimulus checks. If you appreciated the video, hit the like button. It helps us massively for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hope to see you guys next time.